Linda Susan Duffy, a 22-year-old aspiring model, disappeared from Wollstonecraft, New South Wales, Australia, in April 1980 after leaving a strange note for her boyfriend, who was in hospital at the time. She has not been in contact with her boyfriend or family since. Australian police have linked Linda's disappearance to at least one other similar missing person case. Linda Susan Duffy was born in New Zealand in November 1957 to Tom and Merle Duffy. She and her brother, Nigel Duffy, were raised in Wakatan. Linda was an aspiring model who moved to Australia in 1978, living with her boyfriend Stephen Lavender in Wollstonecraft, New South Wales. Wollstonecraft is located on Sydney's lower North Shore and is considered an affluent coastal community. Stephen and Linda shared their home with others, although their identities are apparently unknown. Friends described Linda as beautiful, confident, and a bit of a risk-taker. In April 1980, Stephen became a patient at the Royal North Shore Hospital, but the reason for his admission is unclear. During her stay in hospital, Linda wrote letters to her family and friends in New Zealand, often complaining of boredom and anxiety. On April 5, 1980, Linda wanted to spend a night out, so she went with a friend to a club called the Mansell Room, located at 15 Springfield Street, King's Cross, Sydney. There, they were approached by two men who tried to get close to them. What happened in the bar between the four is also a mystery. However, the two men later took both women to her home. Some sources say it was just Linda. The next day, Linda visited Stephen in the hospital. It was the last time anyone saw the aspiring model. Stephen became concerned on April 7 when Linda did not visit him in the hospital. 3 days later, on April 10, 1980, he received a handwritten letter from Linda. Stephen later told police that the letter and Linda's sudden disappearance were completely out of character. He was released from the hospital on April 17, but Linda did not come to pick him up. When he returned home, the lights were on in their bedroom, but Linda had not slept in their bed. Additionally, all of Linda's belongings were still in the house. Investigators believe the two men who drove Linda and her friend home from King's Cross on April 5 may have information about the investigation. Investigators searched for the men in 1980 but were unable to find them. 31 years later, in 2011, NSW police released two computer-generated images of the men, hoping they could help restore someone's memory and solve the mystery. The first man was 178 centimeters, 5 feet 7 inches tall, age 25, slim, fair-skinned, with long ponytailed hair, hazel eyes, and an oval face. He was wearing a watch and said he was from Melbourne. The second man was 173 centimeters, 5 feet 7 inches tall, also 25, with a medium build, medium skin, a round face, shoulder-length curly hair and a pointed nose. He was wearing a gold chain and said he was from Sydney. He owned a light yellow Japanese four-door car, possibly a Datsun. Unfortunately, no one has come forward with information about the two men. In 2002, New South Wales police investigated possible links between Linda's disappearance and other disappearances, including that of Marion and Sanford, 23, also from New Zealand, and Mary Wallace, 33, an Australian. Marion was a nanny who turned to sex work to finance her heroin addiction. She disappeared under circumstances almost identical to Linda's. Marion's brother last saw her in January 1980 at their home in Camray, just over a mile from Linda's home in Wollstonecraft. 3 days later, Peter received a letter purporting to be from Marion, telling him she was fine and would be away for the weekend, Acting Police Minister David Campbell said in 2010. Peter never saw his sister again, and it is presumed she was murdered. Mary Wallace was also a nanny, and was last seen at Cross's Nest in September 1983. She was supposed to attend her sister's birthday party at her parents' home in Lane Cove but never arrived. Mary worked at a private nursing home in Hunters Hill, Sydney. Mary's murder was later linked by DNA, with the killer identified as Robert Adams, who met Mary at a pub called the New Alpine on the night she disappeared. He was eventually sentenced to 20 years in prison for Mary's murder. Authorities ruled out one possible suspect in the cases of Linda and Marion. Terry Clark was a violent drug trafficker and drug kingpin nicknamed Mr. Asia. He died in a British prison in 1983. Police believed Marion may have been his drug courier and that he was responsible for her murder. In 2007, New South Wales police considered the disappearance of 14-year-old Tanya Irene Farrington, who disappeared from Cross's Nest on March 22, 1979, to be possibly linked to the cases of Linda and Marion. The last person to see Tanya was her brother, who was watching television at night at home. However, when their mother woke up the next morning, Tanya was gone and had not slept in her bed. She was known to sneak out of the house and may have taken a car to Manly to spend time with friends, possibly to visit a disco. She was never seen again. NSW police believe Tanya took this photo just before she disappeared. The man on the right resembles one of the two men who drove Linda home. Gleanna Buckley is the girl in the middle, and one of the men introduced himself as Laurie. Tanya's brother said his younger sister's behavior changed after the family moved to Sydney from the Central Coast in search of work. She became interested in the city's nightlife even though she was only 14 years old. NSW police reopened Linda's case in 2010 and announced a $100,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of those involved in her disappearance and presumed murder. A forensic investigation into Linda's disappearance began in December 2011. On the first day of the inquest before Deputy Coroner Paul McMahon, the inquest heard that Linda changed jobs frequently, was unemployed for a significant portion of the time she lived in Sydney, and that her relationship with her boyfriend Stephen Lavender was unstable. Earlier in the day, the inquest also heard that Linda had been writing letters to her friends and family in New Zealand at least twice a week. These letters stopped on or around April 6, 1980. The letters often stated that Linda was feeling unloved, bored, poor and was feeling sorry for herself after Stephen was admitted to hospital. One or both of the unidentified men invited Linda on a trip to Melbourne that night. The inquest also heard of a woman who claimed to have sat next to Linda on a flight to New Zealand shortly after she disappeared. According to the woman, she told Linda she was tired of Steve and would come back to New Zealand for good. However, the address and phone number the woman gave police did not exist. This was deemed a fake statement and police were unable to locate the woman. Linda's friend Annette Lees gave evidence via video link. She said she and Linda had experimented with drugs. At a party in 1979, a man told Annette that Linda trusted people very quickly and that she would be easy to kill. Another friend, Marjorie McMillian, said Linda would often stop to ask for cars. The two had vacationed together in Greece and would stop to ask for cars almost every day. On one occasion, two men drove the women to a remote area instead of back to the village they had asked them to go to. At the end of the investigation, McMahon handed Linda's case over to the NSW Homicide Unit. It is not yet clear whether the case is still active.